Okay, let's get into this. Think about, well, just the sheer volume of financial transactions happening constantly, trying to spot the dodgy ones and all that noise.
Yeah.
It's like finding a needle in a haystack, maybe even harder.
It really is. Banks are always fighting this uphill battle.
Yeah, and the big question is, how do you get smarter about fraud detection? How do you learn from huge amounts of data without actually digging into everyone's private account details? That's the tricky part.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting today. We're doing a deep dive into some pretty groundbreaking work by ABI Lab. It's happening as part of a bigger European initiative called the Tango Project.
ABI Lab and Tango. Okay.
Their focus is using a technology called federated learning. The goal,
Uh,
to seriously boost how banks fight fraud.
Federated learning. Okay, I've heard the term, but break it down for us. What's the basic idea? Why is it such a potential game changer here?
Sure. So in simple terms, federated learning lets different organizations, banks in this case, work together to train a really smart AI model. But crucially, they do this without ever sharing their sensitive customer data with each other.
No sharing the raw data. How does that work then?
Well, instead of sending all their transaction logs to, say, a central computer, each bank trains a version of the model using its own local data, kept securely in-house.
Okay, training happens locally. Got it.
But what they share is just the learning updates. Think of
Right.
it like sharing the insights or the patterns the model learned, not the actual data points themselves. These updates go to a central coordinator.
Ah, okay. So it's like everyone contributes their findings from their own secret note, but they don't hand over the notes themselves. That makes sense.
That's a great way to put it.
And this is all happening within this wider Tango project you mentioned. What's the big picture with Tango? What are they trying to achieve overall?
Right, Tango is it's quite ambitious.
Mm.
It's fundamentally about creating a framework across Europe for managing data in a way that's secure, reliable, and also, importantly, environmentally sustainable.
Sustainable data management. Interesting angle.
Yes, it has several core parts. Things like setting up rules for data governance, figuring out how to manage and store data that's spread out but still private, developing ways to manage trust when systems are decentralized, and even using AI to make data operations greener and more trustworthy.
Wow, that's a huge scope. Rethinking the whole data pipeline almost.
And I assume ABI Lab's work is one specific piece of this bigger puzzle.
Exactly. Tango isn't just theory. It involves 7 different pilot projects testing these ideas in the real world. These pilots are in all sorts of sectors: smart hospitality, autonomous vehicles, manufacturing, public services.
A real mix.
Definitely. And ABI Lab, which is a major research hub for Italian banks, they're leading the pilots specifically for the banking sector. They're working closely with NTT Data on the technical side, focusing squarely on using this federated learning for fraud detection. Right, the anti-fraud pilot. And this focus on finding new ways is critical, isn't it? Because banks have always known there's value in seeing broader patterns.
Absolutely. The potential for better insights is huge. If you can learn from a wider, more diverse set of data, even indirectly, your analytical models just get so much better. For you, the customer, that could mean better security, maybe faster detection if something weird happens on your account.
And for the banks,
For banks, it means sharper risk management, potentially more efficient operations, catching fraud earlier.
but there have always been roadblocks to just, pooling all that data. What were the main ones?
Well, two big things. First, data fragmentation. Everyone's data is stuck in their own silos. And second, probably even more critical now, are the really strict regulations around data privacy. Think GDPR and similar rules.
Right, you can't just create a giant central database of everyone's financial lives.
Exactly. Banks are rightly very careful and legally obligated to protect customer data. So the challenge was, how do you get the benefits of big data and AI for something vital like fraud detection, while playing strictly by the privacy rules?
And that's the problem federated learning aims to solve. So let's nail this down again. Bank A trains its model on its data. Bank B trains its model on its data.
Correct. All locally, all private.
Then they send just the model learnings, the parameters, not the data itself, to some central server.
Precisely. They send the updates.
What does that central server do? Just mash them all together.
It's a bit more sophisticated than mashing. It acts as an aggregator or an orchestrator. It intelligently combines these updates from all the participating banks. The goal is to create a single, unified global model that's more powerful and robust than any of the individual local models. It captures the collective intelligence.
Okay, synthesizes the knowledge, and
This improved global model is sent back out to each of the participating banks.
Ah, I see. So each bank ends up with a smarter fraud detection tool than they could have built alone, but without ever compromising their own customer data.
You've got it. It's like they all benefit from a shared, much smarter brain, but everyone's individual thoughts remain private.
And this isn't just a one-off thing.
No, absolutely not. It's an iterative process. It repeats. As new fraud trends pop up in one bank's data, the model learns, the updates get shared, the global model improves, and that improved knowledge gets distributed back out. So the system keeps getting smarter over time. Everyone benefits continuously from the collective experience.
That really does sound powerful. The source material we looked at listed some specific pros for banks using this. What advantages really stood out?
Yeah, there are several key ones. First, just better performance. Simple as that. The shared models are more accurate because they've learned from a much wider range of fraud examples across different banks. Second, it makes banks nimbler. They can adapt faster to new threats. If some brand new scam starts hitting just one or two banks.
The whole network can learn about it quickly through the model updates.
Exactly. It's like a privacy-preserving early warning system.
That's clever. What else?
Well, the fundamental point, being able to train really sophisticated AI on massive data sets without breaking privacy rules, that's huge. It lets them build models that can spot really subtle fraud patterns you might miss with less data.
And it keeps the regulators happy, presumably.
Absolutely. It allows banks to embrace AI collaboratively while staying fully compliant with all the data protection, security, and confidentiality requirements. And there's a softer benefit, too. It encourages this kind of healthy, non-competitive collaboration. Banks working together on a shared problem, making the whole system safer.
Shared security through shared intelligence, but with privacy baked in. Okay, let's zoom back in on ABI Lab's specific pilot within Tango. They're focused on retail wire transfers, you said. Why that specific area?
Good question. Retail wire transfers are, well, a major channel for fraud. The volume is high, and fraudsters' tactics are constantly changing, making it a tough nut to crack. By focusing on this specific high-impact area, ABI Lab can create a really concrete test case. They can measure the benefits and show that federated learning is practical in a real banking scenario.
Makes sense to start focused. And their partner, NTT Data, brings the tech muscle.
Yes, NTT Data provides crucial technical expertise for building and implementing the system.
And the basic steps they're following in the pilot are the same ones we've discussed. Local training, sharing the model updates, central aggregation, sending the improved model back.
That's the core loop, yes.
Yeah.
The principles are the same. But the sources also gave some interesting specifics about how ABI Lab is actually building this out technically.
Oh, okay, let's dig into that. What are some of the key technical bits and pieces they've had to figure out?
Well, first step, maybe less technical but essential, was building a community. Getting banks on board for this kind of pre-competitive R&D, you need trust. Then, technically, they focused on developing a, let's say, a simplified infrastructure initially. The idea was to clearly show the benefits without getting bogged down in excessive complexity right away.
Prove the concept first. Sensible. What about the data handling side? How do they prep the transaction data before the AI sees it inside each bank?
Right. They started by creating a well-defined data set from historical transactions, clearly labeling them fraudulent or not fraudulent. A really common issue in fraud data is imbalance way more normal transactions than fraudulent ones. This can skew the AI.
Yeah, the model just learns everything is normal.
Exactly. So they tackled this using a technique called undersampling. Basically, they reduced the number of normal examples in the training set to make it more balanced. This helps a model pay more attention to the rare but critical fraud examples.
Smart. Okay, so the data is labeled and balanced. How do they turn raw transaction details into something the AI can actually crunch?
That's the job of their feature engineering pipeline. They built it as a containerized pipeline. Think of it like a self-contained software package.
So it's easy to deploy in different banks' IT systems.
Precisely. This pipeline does the necessary data cleaning, like handling missing information. But more importantly, it creates new features from the raw data. Things like maybe calculating average transaction values over time or transforming data to highlight potentially suspicious patterns. It makes the data much richer for the AI model.
Okay, a portable data transformation engine. And the model itself, you mentioned a neural network.
Yes, they're using an artificial neural network built with a popular tool called cura. They've put careful thought into its design, the number of layers, the types of connections, the activation functions, which control neuron firing. And they've worked on optimizing the hyperparameters, those like the tuning knobs for the learning process. All this careful design helps the model find those really complex, subtle fraud signals.
So, data prep pipeline, sophisticated neural network, and then they deploy the federated learning software itself within the banks. How do they know if it's actually working better?
Yes, the deployment involves installing the necessary federated learning components. The evaluation is key. They compare the performance of the collaborative federated model against models that each bank could train just using its own data in isolation.
Yeah.
They're looking at metrics like how accurately does it spot fraud? Does it generalize well across the different banks' data?
And it sounds like they're looking beyond just accuracy numbers,
They are. They're also doing work on XAI, explainable AI.
making the black box less black.
Exactly. Trying to understand why the model makes certain predictions. And importantly for the Tango project, they're checking if these explanation methods are compatible and shareable with other European partners. Explainability builds trust and helps meet regulations.
So, putting it all together, what's the latest status? Where does this ABI Lab pilot stand now, based on our info?
Well, the sources indicate that as of 2025, ABI Lab and NTT Data are actively pushing forward with the pilot, involving 2 banks currently. The focus is still firmly on applying federated learning to tackle fraud in retail wire transfers, all under the Tango umbrella. The fact that it's ongoing suggests they're seeing promising results.
Okay, great. So, if we were to boil down the core innovation here, what ABI Lab is really proving with this Tango pilot, what would you say it is?
I think the key innovation is demonstrating the practical application of federated learning in the high-stakes banking world. They're showing it's possible for banks to collaborate effectively on building powerful anti-fraud AI without compromising the strict data privacy and security that's absolutely non-negotiable for them. It's privacy-preserving collaborative intelligence made real.
Right. Banks can team up against fraudsters, get smarter faster about new threats, and stay compliant. It really addresses that fundamental tension.
It really does. That tension between needing to analyze data and needing to protect data is central to so many industries, but especially finance. Federated learning offers a genuinely new way forward.
It definitely makes you wonder, if this works well in banking, with all its regulations, where else could this collaborative, privacy-first AI approach take root? What other data-sensitive fields could benefit?
That's a big question, isn't it?
What are the wider implications for innovation if we can find ways to share insights without sharing raw data? Lots to think about there. Thanks, this was a really fascinating deep dive.